Hi, it's Evie. I want to share some old sayings with you, and I found the meanings of them online. So I was going to write them down, but I'm still going to have to read them because I can't memorize that much. But this is off Grammarly, and the author is Anais John. I don't know if I said her name right. So I remember my grandmother saying, "Oh, it's raining cats and dogs." And I looked it up long, long time ago. And it said the saying came from when there were places where the roof was made out of grass and the roof, like the side of it, came down really low to the ground. The animals would get on top of the roof, including cats and dogs. And when it would start to rain, it would get slippery and they would slide off. I looked it up again and it had a different meaning. It was from England, I believe in the like 1700s, and there would be dead animals in the streets, and when it would rain, then the water would wash them away. I don't know. That didn't make as much sense as the other one, but I don't know if the other one is true. So I looked these up, and some of them are kind of interesting, and some of them not so much. So I'll just try to share with you the ones that I liked. This one's pretty obvious. Bite the bullet. To accept something difficult or unpleasant. Origin. In the olden days, when doctors were short on anesthesia or time during a battle, they would ask the patient to bite down on a bullet to distract from the pain. The first recorded use of this phrase was in 1891 in The Light That Failed. And I remember being in labor with my first baby, and they had to end up doing a general anesthesia rather than a epidural. I was getting a little freaked out because only one leg went numb, and the nurse, the labor and delivery nurse, was rubbing my hair back over my forehead, and she's like, "We're not going to make you bite the bullet. We're not going to make you bite the bullet." And that was the first time I had taken that phrase for exactly what it meant, just like gritting down, bearing labor pains with a bullet in my teeth. Glad I didn't have to do that. Now, this one is break the ice. And I always thought of breaking the ice as like if something was a little tense, you might say something that was lighthearted, start a conversation, kind of break the ice. This is sort of what I thought, but a little bit different. So the meaning is to break off a conflict or commence a friendship. The origin: back when road transportation was not developed, ships would be the only transportation and means of trade. At times, the ships would get stuck during the winter because of ice formation. The receiving country would send small ships to break the ice to clear a way for the trade ships. This gesture showed affiliation and understanding between two territories. This one I think is a little silly. Butter someone up. Now, I think that phrase is still used a lot. I know I hear it, maybe not often, but I've heard it over the years. And the meaning is to impress someone with flattery. The origin: this was a customary religious act in ancient India. The devout would throw butter balls at the statues of their gods to seek favor and forgiveness. I don't know that I even understand. Like, who would have thought, "Oh, I need forgiveness. Somebody give me some butter. I'm going to start throwing it at this statue." I don't know. I just think it would leave oily stains on it personally, but what do I know? Mad as a hatter. The meaning: to become, I'm sorry, I read that wrong. To be completely crazy. So, yeah, I do think of mad as being crazy because I remember being in about fourth or fifth grade. And if I could remember which teacher it was, I could probably remember which grade I was in. But she said, dogs go mad when they get rabies, and people go mad when they're crazy. People get angry. And I've always remembered that. So the origin: No, you didn't already know this one because it didn't originate from Lewis Carroll's Alice in Wonderland. Its origins date from the 17th and 18th centuries, well before Lewis Carroll's book was published. In the 17th century France, poisoning occurred among hat makers who used mercury for the hat felt. The Mad Hatter disease was marked by shyness, irritability, and tremors that would make the person appear mad. Cat got your tongue? Now, I've heard this, I think we all have, when someone's not answering, especially a question that you really want them to answer, and they're just not saying anything. The meaning, asked to a person who is at a loss of words. Origin, the English Navy used to, let me start again. The English Navy used to whip a, okay, take 3. The English Navy used to use a whip called cat o' nine tails for flogging. The pain was so severe that it caused the victims to stay quiet for a long time. Another possible source could be from ancient Egypt, where liars and blasphemers' tongues were cut out and fed to the cats. What a treat for the cats. Not my words, that's on here. Barking up the wrong tree, meaning to have misguided thoughts about an event or situation, a false lead. Origin. This refers to hunting dogs that may have chased their prey up a tree. The dogs bark, assuming that the prey is still in the tree when the prey is no longer there. Excuse me. Turn a blind eye, meaning to ignore situations, facts, or reality. The British naval hero Admiral Horatio Nelson had one blind eye. Once when the British forces signaled him to stop attacking a fleet of Danish ships, he held up a telescope to his blind eye and said, "I do not see the signal." He attacked, nevertheless, and was victorious. So I think we've all heard turn a blind eye, like, I'm not seeing what's going on here. Sometimes that's for your own, I guess, safety. And sometimes it's just like, it's okay, I'm gonna let you get away with that. So let me see how many more I have. There's several left, so I don't want to keep you too long. So I'll pick 4 more, okay? Bury the hatchet. I've heard that kind of like call a truce, right? The meaning is to stop a conflict and make peace. Origins. This one dates back to the early times of North America when the Puritans were in conflict with the Native Americans. When negotiating the peace, the Native Americans would bury all their hatchets, knives, and clubs, and tomahawks. Weapons were literally buried and made inaccessible. Caught red-handed, meaning to be caught in the act of doing something wrong. I think we've all heard that before. Origin. This originates from an Old English law that ordered any person to be punished for butchering an animal that wasn't his own. The only way the person could be convicted is if he was caught with the animal's blood still on his hands. This one's really interesting. Not at all what I thought, and I've heard this before, you probably have too. Give a cold shoulder. So it's like, I'm not speaking to you, you're getting my cold shoulder. So this says the meaning is being unwelcoming or antisocial towards someone. So I think that pretty well aligns. The origin. The first recorded use of this phrase dates back to the early 1800s. It refers to an old custom of living an Let me start over. It refers to an old custom of giving an unwelcome guest a cold piece of meat from the shoulder of mutton, pork, or beef chop, as opposed to a welcome guest receiving a warm serving. This was a polite way to communicate, you may leave now. So I guess it was polite because nobody could tell that it was actually cold. You're just like, okay, time to go. So I don't know, do you take it with you or do you leave it? Let one's hair down. I think we've all heard that. To relax or be at ease. Origin. In public, the aristocratic women of medieval times were obligated to appear in elegant hairdos. I say that right, elegant hairdos that were usually pulled up. The only time they would let their hair down was when they came home and relaxed. And I kind of think of letting your hair down as like, woohoo, we're going to go out and party and we don't care about the consequences or who sees us. We're going to let our hair down. Kind of like paint the town red, which I don't know what that means either. I should have looked it up. Rub the wrong way, meaning to bother or annoy someone. Yeah, I kind of think of that as going against the grain. Origin. Early Americans during the colonial times would ask their servants to rub their oak floors the right way. The wrong way, not wiping them with a dry fabric after wet fabric, would cause streaks to form and ruin it, leaving the homeowner annoyed. Alternatively, it could have derived from rubbing a cat's fur the wrong way, which annoys them. Cats can become annoyed for any reason if you look at them wrong. And that was the last one. It went so fast. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I did. I love to read the old sayings, especially stuff that I remember hearing my grandmother say and, people of that generation, because as time goes on, a lot more of them have faded out than are being used. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you next time. Bye.